awful cinematic trash. This movie was so boring, almost couldn't make it through the whole movie.
Boring. There are a lot of complaints you can level. Boring?
Yeah.
Lots of visuals, yes, but some people need more than just that. Some are easily entertained puppets.
Not like the other guys.
People going into the desert with a container of milk? Nothing here. So dumb.
Okay, that's actually valid.
This person's never gone without milk before.
That was a 1-star review on IMDb. Hello there, and welcome to Spoilers Intended, a podcast about series and films. I'm your host, Andrew, joined as always by Ryan.
I am Immortan Ryan.
And Steven.
Witness me.
This week we are discussing the 2015 film Mad Max Fury Road, directed by George Miller, starring Tom Hardy, Charlize Theron, and Nicholas Hoult.
Yep.
Along with many others.
Well, along with many others, but
yeah.
they're the main three that actually have lines in the film.
Yeah.
Even that's almost a stretch sometimes.
It is. Yeah, so here's a quick synopsis. In a post-apocalyptic wasteland, a woman rebels against a tyrannical ruler in search for her homeland with the aid of a group of female prisoners, a psychotic worshiper, and a drifter named Max.
Max Rockatansky.
Yeah, that's the first time he's actually been credited with his last name.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Every other film was with Mad Max or just Max.
I was going to say, I don't know if they say Rockatansky in the first movie.
I feel like they should have at some point, but that doesn't mean they did.
But I don't know that they did, yeah.
Okay, so quick, before we start, knee-jerk reactions of what you think about this film.
I love this movie. I loved it when I first saw it in theaters. I own it, watch it every couple years or so. It is a spectacular visual feast of an action movie.
Yeah. Steven?
This is an absolutely insane ride. Some of these settings are definitely turned up to 11. I think it lacks in some places, but the 11s are nice too.
Yeah. I love this movie.
Yeah.
This is a really, really fun film. I saw it in theaters when it first came out in IMAX, and it was mind-blowingly good. And that was the first Mad Max film I'd ever seen, so...
What for a lot of people it was, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because I mean, like there were the 80s ones, and we do have a review that you can go listen to right now. But of Road Warrior, Mad Max 2,
the second one.
But yeah, I think for a lot of us, this was definitely the first Mad Max like introduction that we had, and man, it's a heck of an introduction.
It is. There's a lot of really good filmmaking techniques on display in this movie that are...
You can... George Miller is really honed in on this one.
Oh, yeah. And it's one of those things to where, like, my takeaway when I came out of the theater from seeing it for the first time was, like, I've never seen scenes like this in other movies. You know, like, there were so many sequences that I was like, this feels fresh and original, where, like, even the Mission Impossible movies, there would be like a really good action set piece, but then before it, there were like 2 or 3 that are like
everything
similar.
Everything else is just standard spy thriller.
Yeah, and this is just a set piece. The movie.
It is the movie.
Well, this is kind of like George Lucas with the prequels, where he's like, well, the technology has come along far enough that we can show my vision. Like, oh, George, we didn't really want that.
And then you have the other George.
The other George goes like, finally, the technology can play out my vision.
It can keep up with my mind.
So George Miller, he did obviously the first 3 Mad Max films, Mad Max, Road Warrior, and then Thunderdome, and then he did Babe and
Pig in the City.
Feet. Yep. Oh man. Okay, so box office for Fury Road is quite impressive. So it had a budget of 150 million.
Okay,
that's a pretty steep in 2015, honestly.
Yeah,
and it came out with a $380 million worldwide release.
Wow. So
150. It made its money back in just domestic at 154 million.
Wow, that's pretty good.
So then 226 international. So clearly it did very, very well.
Yeah.
Back in the day when you could release anything and make money in the box office.
To be fair, this is a very good film.
It is a very. It is, if nothing else. This is the type of film where when people say, "Oh, you got to see it on a big screen with a good surround sound," this is that film.
Well, and I think the trailers really helped this movie, and like the trailers looked incredible. And there's a lot of movies that come out that like the trailer doesn't fully sell what it is,
or it tells you the whole story. Which bonus for Mad Max, there isn't a story. You can't give it away.
Yeah, right. There's really
that's
really
a
no
bit
plot
harsh,
here.
but okay.
I mean, it's a very minimal, serviceable plot.
Yeah, but that's. the Mad Max movies.
Yeah, but that's the thing.
That is
like,
Mad Max.
You are
You
not
still
going.
get great performances and emotional scenes.
Oh, absolutely.
Even though like the plot itself is just survive the wasteland. Like really, you know what I mean?
I don't. We're surviving a lot more than just the wasteland here.
You're surviving grenade spears and harpoon guns, all sorts of fun stuff.
I just love the idea of George Miller. Like he hasn't worked on one of these in a long time. You know, like Thunderdome was like I think 1990 or 80. No, it was like 85. 85. That was 85.
Yeah, something like that.
So like it's been a hot minute, and he's just got this desk drawer filled with like grenade spears. It's just like all of his like Mad Max ideas just written down. It's like
and
motorcycle tilt-a-whirls
in there.
This page is titled Doof Warrior. It's a dude with a multi-string guitar and bass wrapped around his neck on a car made of speakers.
And it spits fire.
And his wife's like, George, not again. Hold on, I got one.
And also, he's strapped into it with bungee cords, so when they hit a bump, he can still jump on and off of it.
He's just slinging around.
Yeah. So this movie is a whole lot of fun. If you already can't tell and you haven't seen it, I would definitely recommend going to go watch it. But I think the thing that I really like about this film the most, outside of the music, which is fantastic, is really they do such a good job at world building.
Yeah.
Without actually telling you overtly
They show.
Yeah.
Mostly because they didn't have anybody speak, so how would you tell?
Yeah, so
Right.
I'll go ahead and get a little bit of trivia out of the way. Tom Hardy, excuse me.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking Mel Gibson because we just recorded the Road Warrior episode.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah,
Just
so
give
Tom,
it all away to the
don't look behind the curtain. But yeah, so Tom Hardy only had 52 lines of dialogue if you don't count the grunts.
I do count the grunts.
But what if we do count the grunts?
I don't have a number then.
It goes up to 140.
Yeah, which is actually more than what it was in Road Warrior, which was like 16.
16, 16 total lines.
Yeah, so he had more.
He's chatty in this one's what you're saying.
Yeah, very chatty. But yeah, I'm curious what you guys like general thoughts here. Obviously, we all genuinely liked it.
I feel like the easiest low hanging fruit to discuss is obviously the action. Again,
there's just incredible set pieces of just like physical cars doing lots of crazy stuff.
Yeah, and again, like kind of like we discussed in our Road Warrior episode, like you can see like a level of creativity of how these scenes unfold that I feel like it's just a cut above a lot of other action movies where like things don't just play out straight of like, oh, this is happening.
Like this is how it's going to end.
There's constantly like a complication or a problem, or now Max is stuck on a pole and now he's under here, and like people are getting pulled in different directions.
The levels of escalation in conflicts, and it's not always the escalation doesn't just come from the conflict itself. It can be an outside force or like the big dust storm or anything else. Where it's just like, oh, this got so much worse for that. How are you going to? Oh, you're going to. Okay, he's still alive.
Well, and the thing that I like about it too is you have that escalation, and then you always have the realization of this is the reality of living in an apocalyptic world.
Right.
With insane war boys running around on nitro-fueled dune buggies.
Siphoning gas and spinning it into cars.
To that point, I think one of the biggest compliments I can give this movie is that despite all of the intense psychotic action, the crazy lunacy, and like the out there concepts, it's very clear what's happening. It's very clear what's going on in the world. And it's shot in such a way that the action never confuses you. There's no shaky cam. There's no like moments.
Thank God there's no shaky. Can you imagine some of these sequences with shaky cam?
But I can tell you right now, if Michael Bay made this movie, there would be so many incomprehensible action scenes.
The rising turning shot.
Right.
Well, because the big
Morton
thing is
Joe
that
putting his mask on, just turning. But like that's I really want to draw on that. Like you can understand the flow of action.
Everything is crystal clear.
Yeah, and it makes the stakes and it makes those complications and the chaos easy to follow. Yeah. Where like you're never like, wait, why is Max under the truck now? It's like you see the sequence that leads to that, and it's shot in such a way that like I don't know, it just chef's kiss.
The big thing is too is that you have fantastic reveals and then payoffs for those reveals, even if it's a little bit further on down the scene where you have like these kind of like harpooners that do stuff, and you're like, okay, cool, I can definitely see how this works and how they utilize this in a real world setting.
All the weird, wacky inventions used to destroy things make sense.
Yeah.
And the concept behind them, you're like, okay, I could see this being a solution.
Yeah,
I
can see how you got to this purpose of, that's what they use that for, because because you'll see it on like the back of a car and you're like, I don't understand what even this is for. Like, why would you even have this? And then they do the thing and you're like,
So I will say, when we get past the spoiler wall, there is a setup that does not pay off at all, and in fact goes in the exact opposite. I have a complaint about that, but we'll get there.
I have to know.
You can't know now. Have you ever been on a website and thought, mediocre? Well, come and witness spoilersintendedpodcast.com and bask in the Valhalla of content we have created.
Oh, what a glorious website.
What a glorious website where you can find all of our prior episodes and links to things like our Discord, our Patreon, and our socials.
Yes, on our Discord, we have our own community of followers who worship at the altar of...
They listen, they die, they listen again.
Yes. No, we have great conversations over there. We talk about our pets, what we're cooking, what video games we're playing, other stuff we're watching. We discuss episodes. We discuss everything. It's a fun place to hang out on the internet.
We also have a social that you can keep up with what we're reviewing, when new content's coming out and everything like that. Facebook, Instagram, definitely check it out. We appreciate it. Okay, and we are back from the spoiler wall.
We always say just let it roll, but actually just let that roll.
The music in this is absolutely incredible.
By Junkie XL or Tom Hulkenborg.
Hulkenborger.
That sounds like a name from the apocalypse.
Right?
I am Hulkenborg.
Like DJ, what's his first?
Junkie XL.
Junkie XL could be a character, and then he morphs into, I am actually Tom Hulkenborg.
Actually, it would be the Hulkenborg, I feel like. Oh no, not the Hulkenborg.
And the fun part is that the Diesel Punk Mad Max universe would fit that name perfectly fine.
Really well,
for sure.
Yeah.
No sweat.
Okay, so here is some trivia for you.
Trivia, let's hit it.
Yeah, okay, so 80% of the effects seen in the film are practical effects.
Yes.
And basically, including all the stunts, makeup, and sets, CGI was used sparingly, basically to enhance the Namibian landscape, which unfortunately they couldn't shoot in Australia, which I'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah.
And basically to remove stunt rigging, and for Charlize Theron's left arm, which is a prosthetic limb.
Yeah. Right. And there was, so I watched a couple on the Blu-ray of like the special features making of, and there's a couple of scenes where like they had like explosions. And it was just like they only shot one practically in this shot, one practically another one, and they composited the three. Yeah. But those are three practical explosions. You know what I mean? So it's
so there's a lot of digital effects to make these practical effects augmented into what we see on the screen.
Kind of hide the wires of some of the stunts. Yeah. It's still a really good stunt. They just don't need the wire in the middle of it.
Yeah. But I would say that the special effects are executed really well. Like there's not a lot of parts where you're like
two bits of green screen where I'm like,
they could have gone nuts with CGI in this film, especially at 2014, 2015.
Yeah.
They could have gone nuts with it, and they didn't. And I greatly appreciate that.
I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Because, like, when you see the cars crash and roll over and explode, you're like, that was real.
Yeah.
Like, and it really, like, gives you that tactile, visceral feeling that you want out of this kind of film.
Yeah. And I feel like, again, we just reviewed the Road Warrior. You can see like the trajectory of like George Miller likes wrecking cars for real.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And now
then it's like we really, really do it.
Now he knows how to like they probably had like drone controlled cars where like no stuntman was even in. So we could just absolutely flip this thing a million times.
Just tear that thing to pieces.
Yeah.
So kind of going off, so they had to shoot in Namibia because essentially the place that they wanted to shoot in Australia got record rainfall that changed the entire landscape to a fertile green landscape.
George Miller's just cursed with this rain.
Dude, people are going to start paying him. Resorts are paying him to stay away.
Yeah.
Don't bring the rain.
So editor Margaret Sixel, who is also his wife, had roughly 470 hours of footage to edit.
Oh my God.
Whoa.
Watching it took 3 months.
Holy smokes. The notes you'd have to take
Yeah.
Wow.
And then also on that, Margaret basically came to him whenever he asked her to do the project. And she was like, she asked, like, why should I be on this? I've never edited an action film before. And Miller replied, because if a guy did it, then it would look like every other action movie.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And she received an Academy Award for Best Editing.
I think she deserved it.
If you went through 400 plus hours of film,
you just get it by default right there.
To get down to 2 hours on the nose?
Yeah. Even if the edit's terrible, you put the time in, like sweat equity. What did it almost ruin their marriage?
George, you gotta stop turning in reels. You've handed me a petabyte and a half of 4K film.
He's done shooting. He's like got a glass of wine. Honey, come out on the porch. I can't. I've got hours of film.
Honey, I don't understand. Why didn't you come to bed last night? It's your fault.
Yeah.
Okay, so another fun one. The older actresses playing the Vuvolini did their own stunts.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Okay. Took me a really long time to figure out who you're talking about.
All the old women.
Just because no one is actually just named in this film.
She actually does. They actually are named whenever Furiosa walks up for the first time to the tower.
Because one of the wives is named, and that's like it.
Yeah.
And then it's just I felt bad because it was like, hey, we're trying to get away from the concept that these women are like objects and property. And I kept being like, the blonde one, the redhead. Give me a name, please.
Right, yeah. So two things about the film itself, or like kind of the process. So according to director George Miller, the film storyboard was made before the screenplay was even written. The reason behind this was because Miller envisioned the film as a continuous chase with little dialogue and more focus on the visuals. Wow, go figure.
Yeah.
The storyboard was made with the collaboration of 5 artists and had about 3,500 panels.
Wow. So, I mean, I think that speaks to how thought out this was, and that shows in the execution and clearly his wife's editing. Like she knew what the vision was, and like, you know, the execution of the shots clearly helped. Yeah.
And the film was shot in sequence.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's pretty rare.
So that was a piece I left off of the Road Warrior trivia, but that they basically shot the majority of the movie was shot in sequence. Order of sequence.
Man, like that's so rare.
I wonder if that's a George Miller thing.
Maybe a George Miller thing. Yeah.
He literally can't. I wrote the storyboard. Why are you? Don't move him around. I can't. No, I don't know what's supposed to happen. No, I don't know.
I can only remember the next scene. Yeah.
Okay, so 2 more pieces here. The flame shooting guitarist is Australian musician.
There you go.
Sean Hape.
Sure.
Hape. I don't know if that's a different pronunciation for Australia.
How would they say that in Australia?
Yeah, I don't know.
Sean Hape.
He's better known as Iota. In an interview on Vice, he said the guitar weighed 132 pounds.
Holy cow.
Shot real gas-powered flames, which he controlled using the whammy bar.
Heck yeah.
That's awesome.
Again, practical.
Yeah.
The Hugh Keys Byrne, the guy that plays Immortan Joe.
Yeah.
He played Toe Cutter, the bad guy from the very first Mad Max movie.
Oh, that's
cool. So they pulled him back in to be Immortan Joe. Nice. And I was like, that rules.
Okay, so last bit of trivia, and then we can move on to the rest of the film. So this one's a bit of a long one, and it gets a little bit into the weeds just with car engines. So the unique tracked vehicle, so the one that had the tank treads, vehicle driven by the bullet farmer known as the Peacemaker, was considered the most dangerous and problematic vehicle on set. It was constructed by mating a ripsaw tank chassis with a Valiant Charger body. Despite extensive development, the vehicle still had severe problems with braking and engine cooling.
Oh, good Lord.
The original diesel engine was replaced with a water-cooled Merlin V8, which was itself replaced by a Chevrolet 502 V8 when the former was destroyed after ingesting too much sand on set.
I wondered
about that because they have so many intakes just going everywhere and there's just sand.
Yeah.
After a complete redesign of the brake and cooling system was required to make the vehicle usable on set so it didn't kill anyone.
Oh my God.
Like many of the vehicles used in the film, the Peacemaker was crushed after production concluded.
Oh,
that's sad.
But yeah, like the vehicles in this are insane.
Well, I mean,
like, the visual design on them alone is just staggeringly cool.
It's just the commitment to the art direction across the board in costuming and the world, but especially the vehicles. They're just like incredible.
It's just fantastic.
Talking about the sand, there's the bit where the hood of the 18-wheeler is on fire and it dips the plow.
She pulls the lever.
All I could see when I watched was like, oh man, that poor radiator.
Well, so it's fun too because like whenever that happens, you're like, how are they going to put this out?
Yeah.
And then they have a real world application for it of like the whenever they were making this in universe, they're like, we have to have this kind of availability to do this.
I mean, let's be honest. They put that on there so they could run over other stuff.
Well,
it just happens to be it also works for putting out a fire on the top.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's just that kind of thought process, one, like in universe, but then also from George Miller to have a solution to a problem.
Yeah. Well, I love any kind of post-apocalyptic or like post-futuristic technology that's like ancient, because it's like humanity had to reset.
Yeah.
And so we've rebuilt, but we rebuilt this way.
Or like you're attaching your new inventions onto old inventions that are barely maintained kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, kind of like in Dune, they don't have AI on board any of the copters anymore.
Yeah, because of the AI wars.
Very analog. So this is like similar in that, like, okay, we had to start over. Well, all of these trucks need a cow pusher on the front that can go down and scoop up sand, clearly, because there's flames coming from everything.
Every weapon we have here is fire. The guitars are fire. Right. The sticks are fire.
So it's like, in the universe, it's like, oh, you got to have one of those. Like, you hit the button, it goes down, and you pull the sand up. Yeah, otherwise you'll be on fire all day.
Okay, Stephen, what is the plot
you want my plot
doesn't
device?
pay off?
Yeah.
Okay, so when they're in the 18-wheeler, and this is just after Max and Furious have kind of introduced themselves.
Okay,
right?
yeah.
So they're
introduced
still,
with a gun.
There's still tension, right?
Yeah.
And the fuel pod in the back.
Yes.
It starts dragging. So, and he goes back and he plugs in the line and it starts working in, right? Perfect. Exact. I spent too long with 18-wheelers. This is exactly how 18-wheeler brakes work, right?
Yes.
Later in the film, they detach the fuel pod and it just rolls off. But they already showed you in the film that when it's detached, it stops.
Oh.
So I really thought the payoff was, they detach it, and it's just going to be like a landmine in the middle of the road.
I got you. Like, it's
and
going
it
to stop
just doesn't work the way they just showed you how it works.
Okay.
It's like, come on, guys.
That's actually fair.
So it's one of those things where sometimes stuff happens, and I'm like, well, in the real world, but like we also have people rolling in the dirt at 100 miles an hour, and they're fine.
Yeah, they're fine.
We're not in the real world, but it's like, you just showed me that this is actually how it works here. Then you do this and be like, you jerks.
Yeah.
That's okay. That's actually fair. I can give you that one.
I mean,
I'm not going to give it to him.
It's not that big a deal. It's just weird for them
it's just
to take
it's a small little
to take
tidbit.
a moment of a scene to show us the scene, and then
it doesn't
they
do
just
the thing
they do
you
the
expect.
exact opposite of how it would pay off.
Yeah, that didn't even pop on my radar.
So
again, I worked with 18-wheelers for years.
I forgot you were a trucker for a decade.
I was not a trucker. I told the truckers where to go.
Eastbound and down, loaded up.
So I actually did talking to
55.
talking to Nick. I basically did call this movie. They go out. And then they come back again. It's just Smokey and the Bandit.
Convoy. It is. Oh man, has anyone ever done a trailer rematch of that where it's like
so good?
Smokey and the Bandit's audio and like music with like this footage?
So I actually will say I really don't enjoy the plot contrivance of them going all the way out and then just be like, well, let's just go back.
See, I really like that because I like the idea that like they're chasing a green space. They get there.
And then they're like, well, the green space is back where we were.
Well, and Max has known the whole time. Like, he's been cynical and like, what are y'all talking about? There's no green space. They get out there. And like, I do think that.
I told you.
That's one of the biggest moments for me is Charlize Theron's like acting in that moment of frustration.
No, that's fantastic.
I tear up every time just from her pure like frustration with like, this is the only piece of hope I had in my whole life.
Yeah.
And they're like, Greenspan. Oh, that was that swamp where the Crow Boys were walking around on their thing back there.
I love
it's the
dark crystal Striders
cinematic universe.
That's another shot where it's like there's so many parts in this movie where you could just like screenshot it and that's a wallpaper. You know what I mean? Like there's so many moments that like
there's some beautiful landscapes.
But I see what you're saying that like it is we got to go back. But I like the idea that they get out there and he's kind of like, you're gonna go across these salt flats. Like, it's just gonna be 180 miles of salt. Like, they have water, lots of it. They're all out of the house. Let's go.
Like, and that's the thing is like, it makes sense for them to go back.
Yeah.
It's just, it felt a little cheap.
Well, so to me, it got me because it's kind of like the movie looks at well, these are the good people who had a good society, and it collapsed anyways.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, in order to get the green space, we'd have to go back to the dictator who was succeeding at this. Like, wait, hold on, back up.
Yeah.
That's not how evil people are supposed to work here.
But it's like the whole movie you think up until that point is like forward. And
then it's like, no, we gotta hit this reverse.
Go back and it's going to be even crazier.
Yeah.
Now,
but you also get the added benefit of like they have to go back through the canyon. They have to go back through places you're
familiar with. Yeah.
And so now you've got the added like, oh man, what's going to happen this time coming from the other direction?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, I will say, in terms of like character arcs, Nux's arc.
Oh, it's fantastic.
I thought was great.
Yeah.
Which is funny because again, not necessarily the main character, just a character.
The thing that I like about his character arc is that it's not that he stops believing in Immortan Joe or like Valhalla or anything like that. It's that basically they showed him that he was a human and that he deserved.
He has his own worth.
Yeah, like he has some level of worth. And he just wanted to help them. It's not that he stopped believing in all this stuff and,
Well, I like it too because he becomes so enthusiastic. When the truck is stuck, he's so enthusiastic in helping them get out.
Well, and then he gets so excited. He's like,
yeah.
oh man, I can't believe I just did that. Like, I love that kind of enthusiasm.
Yeah. Well, you get the feeling that like he's been sidelined on a lot of things and he's just waiting for his chance to
moment,
shine.
yeah.
And it's like he doesn't get the praise from, Immortan Joe.
Yeah.
What do you say? Like pathetic or whatever.
Mediocre.
Yeah. It's like, but he's getting it from these people and he's actually making a tangible difference.
Well, especially also because earlier in the chase, like Immortan Joe looks in his dress. He's like, oh, he looked at me. He perceived me, and his bud's like, no, man, he just avoids the dust.
He's looking at a speck in the cloud.
Yeah.
I do love that he names his tumors Barry and Larry.
Yeah.
And he like that moment again kind of is like a quick. They don't dwell on it. They don't explain that all these boys are they intentionally irradiated so that they have a half-life?
Yeah.
Like because a lot of other people doesn't look like they have tumors, but these specific
They have other issues, but
right, and so it's like world building, but yeah, he's drawing the little faces on them, and it's like if they don't get me, something else will type thing.
I also really liked the twist with. And again, they didn't name them, so I don't know I can't tell you which wife it was.
Zoe Kravitz.
Not red-haired. I think it is. I don't know if it's Zoe Kravitz either. It's the girl who wants to go back at the start, and they pulled her back.
Oh, yeah.
Pull her back. And then at the end, the final sequence, when the big dude comes over, and she's I want to go back, take me back, and he puts her back in the car, and she uses that as a way to get Furiosa into the car. Because when that moment happened, I was like, "You little traitorous!"
Yeah, I can't believe you did this.
And then she totally redeems it.
Yeah. I know. Then she pops in, and you're like, "Oh, you played the audience, like you played everybody in that movie."
No, that was probably the moment that I didn't expect the most, like in terms of just surprising. Oh, holy crap, they did that. Because again, for the most part, the plot's very linear. There's not a whole lot to it. There's not a whole lot built up around it. It just plows through the desert.
But man, the talking about some fantastic moments whenever Furiosa gets up and essentially kills Immortan Joe.
Oh yeah,
and she's like, "Remember me," and just throws it into the tire, and just like there's some really hype moments in this film.
There are like the moment when Max is hanging out and Furiosa has him and she gets stabbed and she's like wheezing and still hanging on, and you're just like, like there's just so many moments that are like just tense.
Boy, she just hauls through a collapsed lung and a
collapsed lung needs a blood transfusion.
But then I do like that
she looks pretty beat up though.
They set him up early in the movie as like a universal donor.
Yes.
So he's the blood bag.
They
did do a really good job of setting up stuff and paying off. I also really liked seeing from watching Road Warrior, you kind of see where the concept of putting the prisoner in the front comes from.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
you can see kind of the development of it.
Yeah.
Well, so I also in that scene, whenever he's basically like poking a puncture in her side to help relieve some of the pressure and stuff that, and that's like one of the most heart wrenching moments because like he's doing everything he can, and like
I'm
Tom
sorry.
Hardy's like he's not. I mean, he's not a very emotive character because it's Max, but like those are the moments of like his true humanity coming back through.
Yeah.
And he's just like, I'm sorry, I know this is going to hurt really, really bad.
All that makes me think of is, which I don't think either of y'all seen it, the movie Three Kings.
Yeah, I've seen it. It's been a long time.
The bit where the guy, he has a collapsed lung and they have to put the valve in him.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. The inflatable man.
I also like, too, that like, So this movie like doesn't really like none of these movies really fit in the same canon.
Not really.
They're all kind of their own loosely
he always
connected
has his
thing.
car, and his car always gets destroyed.
And it's like, did this happen before Road Warrior?
The timeline for this, and also apparently there were like comics as well, and none of the timelines agree. They don't agree with each. Like,
well, and they don't have to.
No, they don't. They don't need to. And it kind of almost becomes a thing where going back to Road Warrior, where he's like a legendary figure, where it's just like, is this just like another person who picked up the mantle? Because if you follow the strict timeline, Max should be like 60 in this film.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, there was somebody theorized that the feral child is the Max in this movie.
Right. Yeah, I saw that theory as well.
And I was like, I don't know if I buy that one, but like, all right.
They would have had to have given something else away. He does grunt a lot though.
He does.
Yeah. Well, so the other thing is too, and this is where this also.
Can you imagine if he like whipped out a boomerang in the middle?
Threw it and went, like,
so this is kind of the same problem that like Fallout has just as a general franchise is like you have these kind of like animals and stuff that have like multiple heads and all these other kind of things. For radiation to create these weird mutations, it would take hundreds of years, if not thousands, to like have these things. And right at the beginning, you have a lizard with 2 heads, so it's just kind of like it's really just the vibe of the post-apocalyptic diesel punk, world.
But so what I was bringing up with it being like in a timeline loosely is the use of his remembering his daughter, which I'm pretty sure in the first Mad Max it's a son and he's a baby. Like when he died.
Oh, interesting.
He's like a small child.
So clearly, like George Miller's just having a lot of fun of just like, let's just kind of remix it a little bit.
But I like that, like the flashbacks, the remembering starts, and he's talking to her about how like, hey, you can't let this stuff win, and he's hearing the voices. I love the scene where they're going to shoot him with the crossbow.
Oh, and she tells
the
him to
girl
raise his
does
hand,
like that, and he raises the hand, but it still sticks into his forehead. So he's still
because it's funny because you don't know that at first, and you're like, what is he doing?
Yeah, so it's funny to me is when it happened, I was like, man, that barely slow that down. And he's wiggling around. Like, oh, okay, it is stuck in his forehead. Ow. Because not only did you just take a crossbow bolt to your hand and your forehead, you also just like slap the crap out of yourself.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
But I like that moment where it shows her and it becomes functional of like she's helping him. It's not just because up until then it's kind of just there as like he's haunted. He's got a past.
Well, I almost wonder, right? Because it is a weird twist that you go from in the original movie it's a son and now it's a daughter.
So maybe that's just like his mind kind of like twisting.
Well where I was going to go is, we're getting the whole reason that we kind of kicked off these reviews, right, is because Furiosa is coming out.
Yeah. Correct, yeah.
And so
we'll get there.
That's a prequel.
Oh, it is. It is.
Yeah. So it almost makes you wonder at some point down the line, do we get a Mad Max prequel to Fury Road? And it's in between these moments. He has another family or something.
It could be. So, and that's the thing. Tom Hardy technically signed up for 3 more Mad Max films, which clearly haven't happened yet.
I didn't realize that.
Now, obviously contracts are always in flux and that kind of thing. But in 2015, he did sign up for it, despite having harsh words for the production. He was very hard to work with on set.
Really?
And he apologized to George Miller after he saw the film because he was like, oh, I see the vision now.
Interesting.
Like on set, him and Charlize like didn't really understand what was going on.
Oh wow!
And they didn't get along at all because he was like very myopic, is his word.
Apparently, he was a total butt, and she was just the consummate professional and everything.
And those two clashed,
right. And I saw something, and I don't know how true it is or not, where it was like it hit right when he was going through something personal life, and he let it bleed in.
Quite possible, yeah.
Which
since then he's apologized for it and whatever. It's still not good, but at least there's a little more reason he's just like, I'm getting paid for this and I hate it.
Right. Well, and I'm sure it was a difficult production to be a part of.
Let's go to Namibia and spend all day out in the desert where it's either
wearing
really
leather
hot or
really
cold and just sand, just the full Anakin's nightmare. It's just sand everywhere.
It doesn't excuse the behavior, but that's interesting that he didn't get it, and then after he saw the movie, he's like, "Oh, I get it."
Yeah. He basically, like he said, after he watched the film at Cannes or whatever, he just went, like he talked to George Miller, and he's like, "I am sorry. Like this was like clear. I know that I was." Not in a good place.
A pain in the rear.
Yeah.
I didn't.
But clearly this was a fantastic vision, and it was. I mean, it won six Academy Awards, I think.
What did you guys think of the use of color?
Oh, fantastic.
I thought it was great how like the sand is very orange and the sky is hyper blue, but then like the night scenes. Like,
oh, yeah. So fun thing about the night scenes, those were all shot during the day.
Right. Yeah.
And
the classic daylight maneuver.
They were overexposed intentionally and then just recolored.
Yeah.
Just because they I guess they found it easier just to shoot during the day.
I mean, it makes for some easy to digest night scenes.
Right. In an era of Game of Thrones, I'm going to set the EV to negative 30,000 for
right.
Figure it out, nerds. Any time that happens, where it's just, hey, we just revert back to the classic 80s, 90s move of it's just a blue-toned day scene. And you just accept that it's night.
And it's stylistically blue, too.
Yeah.
It's not just like, oh, we're trying to hide the fact that we shot this during the day.
No,
this is just during the day. It's just blue.
Right. Yeah. It just looks really, really blue. But then there's a couple of other moments where like when the flares pop up, the smoke flares, like that pop of color.
Oh, they do have kind of almost like a weird oversaturated
hypersaturation.
Yeah. So whenever production was happening, George Miller specifically asked all of the color graders and everything like that, I want this to be the most colorful post-apocalyptic world that we've ever seen.
Right.
Because he said every other post-apocalyptic world is always drab and desaturated and really like subdued hues. I want this to be colorful.
I always think of Terminator Salvation, the one that takes place in the future with Christian Bale as John Connor. And everything was like, it was basically sepia.
Yeah, it's just, everything's in Mexico.
But it was way, way undersaturated.
Yeah.
It's as if they shot it and then put it on like 50%, a saturation. Just everything's just washed out and brown.
I will say, we're talking about that. I'm going to hold this up for y'all to kind of see it.
Okay.
Because there are iconic photos from the Namibian sand dunes.
Yes. Yeah.
And they are like the orangest oranges
objectively
and
orange.
bluest blues.
Oh, wow.
So like we say, oh, it's so oversaturated. Like the sky's really blue. Like in a lot of sense,
how it looks.
This is just how it looks because it's such a contrast of the orange and blue.
Nice.
They complement each other so well that it makes it look that way.
That is a great choice of where to shoot it. There's
some level of like, are the flares oversaturated? Absolutely. You can see how crispy they are in the scene, but like the actual sand, it just kind of looks that way. And they probably amped it some
a little bit, but didn't have to go far with it. Yeah. So comparing this to like the Road Warrior, right, that we just reviewed. What kind of, are there any like one-to-one moments where you're like, oh, this is obviously.
There's a big 18-wheeler chase. Right. Twice.
That's the easiest,
Slam dunk it, baby.
Well, so I think my favorite little, it's really just more of some of just like kind of like nods to the original, because you definitely there's a couple deaths that happen just like with like, just mercs that, are basically one-to-one from Road Warrior into this, just done in a more visualistic style or, whatever.
Yeah. It's like George Millerisms.
Better.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just his signature. Like, this is how people are going to die.
Yeah.
There was a shot in the first Mad Max when someone dies in a car crash where it cuts really quickly to a close-up of a puppet face with eyes, and they literally like squeeze the thing and the eyes bulge out a little bit.
Whenever I think his name was Slit.
Yes, he's Nux's buddy.
Yeah, and he that's when he gets
There's a
crushed.
callback to it in this that I was like, they brought it back because they didn't do it in Road Warrior Thunderdome, you know, and it was this thing they did in the low budget, they just like did this to just for a few frames, you see the eyes kind of bulge, and then in this one they did, I was like, they brought it back.
So I think one of my favorite just generalities of the film is I love that all of like the war party, they're basically just whalers. They have harpoons, they have things to basically drag it and basically like slow the whale down. Right. They have like grenade harpoons and just all sorts of really interesting tech of like where George Miller was like, whaling, this is what Australia has done for a while, and we're going to just turn this into cars.
I will say the concept of, especially the people on like motorcycles and stuff, running up on an 18-wheeler.
I mean,
is just.
But that's all these people do.
They're all insane. Just in general, it's just one of those things like watching them where they're like, oh, there are all these peons all around us. I'll continue to drive straight. It's like, dude, you are hauling. You are like 50,000 pounds easy. Just run them over.
Got him.
Yeah. Like,
well, and it has
I slammed on, I brake checked a dude that I weighed 25 times. Guess what the result is?
they're just
He's
paste.
hamburger.
Yeah.
So I also love the fact that the Citadel War Party has just a hype train that goes with or a hype bus that goes with them. It's just drummers and an electric guitarist with a flaming guitar.
I love that though,
because
again, it's kind of the same idea of like you're rebuilding society. So it's like the old idea of having like a marching band with the cavalry, like it's like, yeah, we have that, but it's a car that we've put together with 100 speakers on it, and the drum guys are just all on this 45-degree angle on the back, which like it makes sense, but it looks wild.
Yeah.
I do like too that like the people from Gastown and Bullet Town have like unique.
They have their own visual styles and everything.
Like the dudes in the canyon, they all have motorcycles.
The guys with the spikes all over their cars,
the porcupine cars.
Yeah, the porcupine cars. That whole scene was just like whoa. Because the other thing that happens too in that scene specifically is the porcupine cars roll up and you get to see them use the the grenade staffs or whatever, but it doesn't take the car out the first time.
Nope.
It's like 4 or 5 of them, and the car's still going. You're like, what? In a lot of action movies, it's like one done.
Yeah,
it's like
well, so the big
these...
thing here is that because I was actually talking about this off screen or off recording right before this, was you need to have an example of what the bad guys or what the technology is capable of doing in these kind of action films.
Yeah, you need to know how far they're willing to go or how stuff will and won't work.
Yeah, so whenever you have the war boy that essentially gets killed, but he's still alive. And then you see the fanatical kind of the witness me, and he jumps on the car with the double harpoon grenades, and like that's his way of going out. And you're like, okay, I understand the mantra of these guys now,
right?
And then whenever later on in the film, whenever what's his name? Nux, yeah. Whenever Nux basically goes through and tries to essentially do the same thing multiple times and unfortunately just doesn't work.
Right. Just not very good at it.
Yeah. So you get to see his, whenever he does have his moment, it actually like hits really hard.
Oh, his moment's great, honestly, because they give him such a good arc that when he makes his sacrifice, you're like, whoa.
Yeah. Well, because
Nicholas Hoult delivers that line, witness me. And he just says it so like, it's like, man.
Well, and when you see that too, because like up until that point, he's just doing what he can to help them out. And then he sees the moment. He's like, this is mine.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know that the big son of Immortan Joe, his name is
Richter.
Rictus Erectus is his actual credited name.
Gosh.
And I'm like, I love that.
So he reminds me of a character from Trigun.
Oh yeah, the guy with the
with like the big kind of like arm guns or whatever.
It's
just Diablo.
Gang. Yeah.
Gale something.
I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Trigun guy with arm gun. Hold on.
Yeah, you'll get it there. The other thing too that I like is like that Immortan Joe. Again, kind of like the world building through without or whatever. It's like you see him dole out just enough water.
Just enough water, yeah.
And you're like, wow, he's just keeping all these people like
just
there.
Barely alive.
And he's saying stuff like, don't get addicted to water. It's like, what? You have to have water.
You have all the water you want.
Yeah, but then he's got all the nursing women in there making just all this milk or whatever. Yeah. And then you have like his sons, and he's obsessed with having, I guess, healthy sons.
Yeah.
That's his whole thing. And that's why he has these like private brides or whatever. And it makes you wonder, like, how long have they been brides? Right? Like, did he grab them as children and raise them separate? Or was it like when they came of like, teenage years and he was like...
I think there are some comic books that actually cover some of that.
They go into that? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think.
So we're kind of wrapping up here. So what are your favorite moments?
Ooh.
Okay.
So I'll start with mine, and it's actually kind of the small one. So whenever they get through the sandstorm and
just the sandstorm.
The sandstorm's really cool, but
cool.
Max, walks up with Nux just completely passed out.
Oh yeah.
And then they enter the scuffle basically to control the situation
where the two of them are fighting while he's still chained and masked.
But then whenever Nux like wakes up and he starts helping Max, because obviously like at that current moment they're trying to
they look like such a team when he slides the magazine.
He slides the magazine,
puts the gun down on it.
Yeah, and I love this. I love that moment where he slides the magazine, puts it on, then just shoots around her head. He's like, I have the control now. I love that little moment because he's not trying to kill her. He's just like, please stop.
Well, that whole sequence is choreographed in such a way that, again, it kind of plays into that Jackie Chan style fight with like, now you're up, now I'm up, and I'm up because of a different thing, and now this chain's got me.
Environmental effects, and and
then there's the hose, and now there's water.
It's fantastic, just action choreography.
Yeah, like that scene right there is probably the best fight. Man, what's my favorite scene?
I love the big swinging poles that they use to deliver people. Because it's such a good solution for like, how do we get from one moving vehicle to the other? Instead of like pull up close to it and jump, well, I just lean you over and drop you down, and you come down with like a chainsaw or whatever else, accomplish your thing, I pull you away.
Well, those guys were probably the most dangerous out of all the other stuff.
They certainly have the best kill count.
Well, and when Max gets on one of them and it goes down on the sand and his like face is like inches from the ground and then they swing back up, like that whole scene was just, ooh.
That's fantastic.
I think one of my favorite action scenes is in the canyon when Immortan Joe is in the monster truck and he like passes him and jumps over the whole convoy, and then that ends with his favorite Splendid dying, like going under the tires. That then leads into a very good like early scene with Furiosa and Max where she's like, we have to go back, and he's like, she's under the tires. Like the way he says it to her,
she went under, and and she was like, did you see it? He's like, she went under.
Yeah, it's the way he says it and the way like she at this point presumably still doesn't trust him. Is like,
I mean, I actually at that time I thought, because the sequence happens so fast, I was like, is he lying on this one? I'm not, because it would be in character for him to just be like, nah, man, we need to keep moving, and then it cuts to a scene and she's like sitting upright, fine, a little scuffed or whatever. But obviously, that's the truth. I don't know. I don't actually know if she went under or not. It doesn't matter. You hit the ground at like 100 miles an hour.
You're probably
she's
just dead anyways.
Yeah. Okay, so that does sound like we are kind of wrapping up here.
Yep.
I think we would all recommend this movie to someone, right?
I would, yeah.
There's definitely an audience for it. It made plenty of money. It's a visual spectacular.
I'm trying to think of, like, there's definitely people this movie is not for.
I think you need to be aware of what it is.
Yeah, going into this,
fool yourself that this is some grand conceptual.
No, it is an action movie through and through.
Yeah,
it is meant for popcorn entertainment that has some fantastic acting moments and incredible practical effects.
Ridiculous practical effects.
Yeah. I think that speaks right to my interest. So like, that's why I like it so much.
Yeah. Okay, so before we go, we do have to talk about our Patreon.
For just $1.
Wow, nice in tandem there.
The most direct way to support the show, help us keep making great content, and provide you with wonderful things like bonus episodes, commentaries, and access to Patreon Picks polls where you can help dictate the course of the cast.
Yes, you can steer this rig in whichever direction you want it to go, as long as that direction's towards a movie.
And don't run over us, please.
Please don't.
Please, we would really like to not.
I'm under the tire!
All right. As always, follow us on social, leave us a review wherever you're listening now, and share us with a friend. We would really appreciate it. It really is the best way to support the show.
Yeah.
And that does sound like all the time we have. So until next time, I'm Andrew.
I'm Ryan.
And I'm Steven.
And every spoiler was intended.